Folks, this is Chris Richter of Board Gaming for the Win coming to you with another Red Nose Day game tutorial. This time, it is the classic, well, soon to be classic, Cartoon Network Crossover Crisis deck building game by Cryptozoic. It was just released a little bit over a month ago and is part of their Cryptozoic line of deck builders. Now, all these deck building games that they have released have something called the Cerberus system, and what that means is that all the cards that are in all the games can be mixed in together. Now, what's different about Cartoon Network Crossover is that it has something to do with the different cartoons on Cartoon Network. Well, let's get to the game so I can show you what it's all about. Network Crossover, which is by, again, Cryptozoic. It is for 2 to 5 players, and it is a deck building game. And with the game, you will get a promo, and that promo happens to be the character Dee Dee from Dexter's Laboratory. And so, if you are very familiar with the DC Universe deck building game from Cryptozoic, then you already know how to play. But if you're not versed in how to play a deck builder, let me show you what to do. So I always talk up deck builders because I love deck building games. They're so simple to learn and they're so easy to play. Now, most of the deck builders that are out there, you won't be a character, you'll be your own self, and you will have a deck of, starting out with, of 10 cards. Now in this one, it's punchies and pratfalls, and some of the other ones, it's like punches and kicks, and vice versa. They're all the same thing. So any of the starters that you can use, and you can mix them all up together, you know, it all works the same. Now the way this works is that you will draw 5 cards. So I'm going to draw myself some 5 cards here. So everyone will draw 5 cards, and one person will go first. And then you have this card lineup that's in front of you. You always start out with 5 cards in your lineup. And everyone is going to be purchasing from this main lineup. Things that you want to buy, probably during your turn, especially early on, are Inside Joke, featuring characters from Clarence, and Sumo. They will give you 2+ to your power. They're not worth any points, but they do cost 2 to purchase. Then you have your villains that you will be facing throughout the game. Now, this is what the game is completely about. It is to defeat all of your nemesises. So, as you can see, this is the Ice King. He is the nemesis of Jake the Dog and Finn the Human in Adventure Time. He is worth 4 points when defeated. He costs 8 to defeat. But when you defeat him and put him to your deck, when you draw him out, he gives you +2 power. And then once during each foe's turn, you may reveal this card from your hand and discard a weakness. So your opponents are your foes, and you know, there are some things that will happen where you'll get weaknesses. So with a weakness, during your turn, playing weakness cards before playing other cards, you cannot smile or laugh this turn. If you do, you gain another weakness. So they're a little different. You got Johnny Bravo, you've got The Amazing World of Gumball, you have Clarence, and Dexter's Laboratory, so on and so forth. So you'll see all these cards, all these different ones throughout the game. Now, usually weaknesses in all the other games are the exact same. The one cool thing about the Cartoon Network Crossover Crisis is that all the weaknesses have some sort of different power or ability that it brings to the table. Now, each of the characters, especially in like the DC deck builder or even in Naruto, your characters have some sort of power. So once during each of your turns, you may destroy any equipment in your discard pile. If you do, draw 3 cards. Well, I don't have a discard pile right now, but if I did and I had one of these equipment cards in it, I could destroy it from my discard pile and then draw 3 extra cards. So as a turn goes, you will basically play what you have. So I have 5 power. So you look at the field here and you see, oh, what can I take and put into my discard pile? Well, let's see. The female villain Jamie from Gumball, she gives +1 power and chooses a foe, and then you attack. Now, attack is something that you want to do to prevent your opponents from doing something. So that foe would discard a card, so you would automatically, pick whoever else is playing with you, and you pick one of them, and they would have to discard a card. Now, Demongo from Samurai Jack is a male villain, and costs 3. Gain a villain from the lineup when you play it, which is great. So if Demongo was in my hand and I played it and Jamie was still out here, I would automatically gain Jamie and she would go into my discard pile. Now, you see these little stars on the bottom left-hand corner of the cards. Those are points. Now, at the end of the game, everyone tallies up their points, and the person with the most points wins. That's why you kind of have to defeat all of these. Now, each one of the nemesises actually has a different point value. So, it is good to try to get as many as you can, because this is where you're going to get most of the points. But, combination of things, like destroying the equipment card. So, if you actually had this and decided that you didn't need it any longer, then you could discard it, and or you can get rid of it from the game, and you can draw up 3 more cards, because you might need those cards to get points to use, power to actually draw or, buy these cards. Because some of them, like Gem Fusion from Steven Universe, it's 6, and it's a superpower. Now, one thing that you have to look at is what they are, like villains, superpowers. These are keywords that will be seen throughout the entire game. Now, another different thing for Crossover Crisis is that introduces fist bumps. So, equipment for Card Wars cards, it is fist bump a foe. That foe draws a card and then reveals their hand. Choose a card from their hand, play it, and then return it to them at the end of turn, which is great, because then you can actually choose one card from their hand and then play it, which is awesome. Now, when you decide to buy something, so like I said, I have 5 power, so I can look at the powers here and I can go, okay, well, I'm going to purchase Card War card and put it into my discard pile. So I'll put it in my discard pile, and I have 1 left over. Unfortunately, there is nothing I can buy that has a 1 right now. So at the end of my turn, a new card is drawn from the center deck and put out into the lineup. Now it would be my opponent's turn. My opponent would draw 5 cards. So everything that was in your hand previously will go to your discard pile. So my opponent draws 5 cards. I'll flip those over. My opponent happens to be Clarence, who is a goofy young man from the cartoon Clarence. He's the main character. I love the show because it's just so out of this world. Now, during each player's turn, the first time you discard a card from your hand or pass a card, draw a card. So, we've got +1 power. Put a weakness in your discard pile on the bottom of the... Well, no weaknesses, so pratfalls don't help. So Clarence has 2 punchies, so that's 2 power. Anything in the center, that 2 power? No, unfortunately not for Clarence. So he will buy an inside joke, and it will go to Clarence's discard pile. So that's really how you play. You just want to build up your deck, because once you run out of cards from your main deck, you will shuffle everything back together that you have in your discard pile, and you will draw 5 fresh cards. So that's really it. And, a deck building game such as Cartoon Network Crossover Crisis is pretty easy to learn. There are so many from Cryptozoic. You have Street Fighter, Naruto, you have a multitude of DC deck builders, you have one for Lord of the Rings, and of course, you know, the new Cartoon Network crossover Crisis. So thanks for joining me once again. You can follow Board Gaming for the Win at Twitter, at boardgaming_FTW. You can also follow my reviews on WordPress at Board Gaming for the Win. And you can listen to my podcast Monday, Wednesday, and Fridays each week on Podcast Garden, Google Play Music, and Board Game Geek. Thank you for joining me for this special Red Nose Day game tutorial. There will be more to come.